This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather Ho there. It's Jeff Cutastrophe. Welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. And the birthday boy for today, June 25th, is a NBA icon. He's got a weird name, but anyway, he played 18 years in the NBA and known for his humanitarian work. One of the best shot blockers of all time, 4-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year, and 8-time All-Star. He actually became the second highest shot blocker in NBA history, behind only Hakeem Olajuwon. Anyway, he would retire in 2009, and in 2015 he was named to the Basketball Hall of Fame. He's now 57 years old. He was born in Kinshasa, Congo. His name is Dikembe Mutombo. His real name is Dikembe Mutombo Blundo Mutombo Jean-Jacques Mutombo. That's a mouthful. So anyway, he was one of 10 children born to his parents. Mutombo was learned to speak English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and 5 Central African languages. So anyway, he went to Kinshasa, Congo, for a while. And he was encouraged by his father and brother to play basketball. So at age 21, he would go to the States to enroll in college. He would attend Georgetown University, which was a very good school back in the 80s. He wanted to be a doctor. But John Thompson, the legendary basketball coach of Hoyas, recruited him to play basketball. He would have to study in the ESL program because he spoke almost no English. However, it would be huge as both Mutombo and Alonzo Mourning played together, and they were both very good blockers. Georgetown fans would actually have a rejection row section under the basket, adding a big silhouette of an outstretched hand to a banner for each shot blocked during the game. Mutombo, ironically, would share the Big East, that's the conference that Georgetown was in, Defensive Player of the Year with Mourning in 1990, and then in 91 he won it outright. His international background and interest stood out at Georgetown. He was a summer intern for the World Bank. He would graduate with bachelor's degrees in linguistics and diplomacy. Very nice. So came the 91 NBA draft for Mutombo to be drafted and all that. Charlotte took Larry Johnson first overall from UNLV. Not bad. Kenny Anderson went second to the Nets from Georgia Tech, excuse me. And Billy Owens went third to Sacramento, but then he was traded to Golden State. So Sacramento wasted it on Billy Owens, who wasn't much of a player. Denver was next on the clock, and they took Mutombo, which was very good. The Nuggets' defensive rating sucked, and Mutombo would help Denver out. It was funny seeing Mutombo in the rainbow jersey of the Nuggets. Anyway, he was marketable, and after blocking a player's shot, he would move his right index finger at that player and move it side to side. As a rookie, he was part of the All-Star team. He got 16.6 points, 12.3 rebounds, and nearly 3 blocks per game. He was huge in all of that. Mutombo became the franchise cornerstone for Denver in '94, especially that season in which they got 42 wins, narrowly made the playoffs, and then somehow, in some way, took care of the 63-win Seattle Supersonics in the first round of the playoffs. Now, of course, it's a little bit biased because it's a 5-game series, whereas nowadays it's best of 7 in the first round. It was best of 5. Denver was down 0-2 and 1 loss away from being eliminated, but they won games 3 and 4 on home turf and game 5 in Seattle. It was just amazing. Mutombo is known for his moment when Denver finally won that game 5. He grabbed the game-winning rebound and fell to the ground, holding the basketball in his hands. Putting up 31 blocks in 5 games, which is still an NBA record for a 5-game series. Not a best of 5, but a series that ends in 5 games. So that's 6 blocks per game. The Nuggets were close in round 2. They were down 3-0 to the Utah Jazz and almost pulled it off. They forced game 7, but lost in Utah. He was named NBA Defensive Player of the Year for the first time in 1995. Denver did not have the supporting cast around Mutombo, although he could have 4 blocks per game. Mutombo was a free agent and wanted a 10-year deal. Bernie Bickerstaff, who was the Nuggets general manager, said his biggest regret was not bringing Mutombo back. And so he signed with Atlanta for 5 years, $55 million, or $11 million per year. He would help Atlanta do quite well, put in per 50-win seasons. But unfortunately, the Bulls were his downfall and all that. So it was not really that great. So anyway, the NBA would actually ban the Mutombo finger wag as it was taunting. He would comply with the rule. He did quite well for the Hawks. And then at the 2001 trade deadline, the Hawks decided to trade him to Philadelphia for Tony Kukoc and Phil Ratliff. Ratliff would become an Atlanta legend, but Mutombo, it was a big move because the Sixers were the best team in the East that year. And ironically, the week earlier, Mutombo played in the All-Star game as a member of the Hawks. And he would be playing with Allen Iverson, who was the NBA All-Star Game MVP. The Sixers needed to do some work and all that. Strange as it sounded, Mutombo would get his 4th Defensive Player of the Year, despite the fact that he played for 2 teams, not 1. They took care of the Pacers in the first round. The Raptors in a memorable 7-game series that ended badly for Toronto fans like myself, because of Vince Carter's missed shot. And Milwaukee, who took Philly into a Game 7. Mutombo would be the big reason why the Sixers won Game 7 against Milwaukee and went to the NBA Finals, scoring 23 points, 19 rebounds, and 7 blocks. The Sixers were up 1-0 on the Lakers in the final, but lost the next 4, which was funny because that was the only time the Lakers lost in the 2001 playoffs. Mutombo did okay, matched up against Shaq, 16.8 points per game and 12.2 rebounds in the final. He re-signed with the Sixers for a 4-year deal. And anyway, it just wasn't much there. 2002, the Sixers couldn't do anything, so they decided to trade Mutombo to New Jersey for Keith Van Horn and Todd McCullough. Unfortunately, Mutombo would be hurt and all that. He would come off the bench for the Nets. The good news for him was that they got to the NBA Finals. The bad news is they lost to the Spurs in 6 games. The Nets would buy out his 2-year, the remaining years of his deal. And Mutombo found his way on the Knicks for some strange reason. He signed a 2-year deal. Anyway, you know, it worked out. But the Knicks would trade him to Chicago for Jerome Williams and Jamal Crawford. Then the Bulls didn't want Mutombo and traded him to Houston for Eric Piatkowski, among others. However, in his first season, he did quite well. And then in 2007, in a game against the Nuggets, he actually became the oldest player in NBA history to record 20 rebounds in a game. Mutombo would help the Rockets out when Yao Ming was hurt in 2008. Mutombo signed in 2009 with Houston. Unfortunately, in Game 2 against Portland in the playoffs, he landed awkwardly and had to be carried from the floor. He ruptured his quad in his left knee. He retired April 2009 after 18 seasons in the NBA. But it was great. He won 4 Defensive Player of the Years. The only guy who has that many? Ben Wallace. Mutombo was a staple of being a defensive player and all that. Anyway, you know, it was just huge. Mutombo would meet his wife Rose during a visit back to Congo in 1995. They married her. So anyway, they live in Atlanta and have 3 children. And adopted 4 children from Rose's deceased brothers. Ryan committed to play at Georgetown. So Ryan Mutombo. So anyway, he was given a Doctor of Humane Letters by a State University of New York for his humanitarian work in Africa, and an honorary doctorate by Georgetown in 2010. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . So yeah, Ryan Mutombo currently plays for Georgetown, which is good and all that. Mutombo actually was there when the Brussels bombings happened at the Brussels airport in Belgium, but thankfully he's alive. And he's going at treatment for brain tumor. Mutombo would actually be in Joanna Man in 2002 and Like Mike. So a couple of basketball movies from 2002, which I owned on VHS for a while. Mutombo would have a couple of appearances in commercials and all that, but Mutombo would help the African population with his humanitarian work, including a couple of hospitals. So he did his job. He's a great humanitarian and a great shot blocker. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, 95, 97, 98, and 2001. 8-time All-Star. 2nd in blocks. 2-time rebounding leader. 4-time total rebounds leader. 3-time block shots leader. 94, 95, 96. Yeah, he was 40 when he had that 20 rebound game. His number 55 has been retired by both Atlanta and Denver, which is pretty impressive. I forgot his number was retired. Anyway, with his time with Denver, Atlanta, Philly, New Jersey, New York, and Houston, 1,196 games, 9.8 points per game, 10.3 rebounds per game. But of course, he slowed down near the end of his career. In the playoffs, he got to the finals in 2001 with Philly, but unfortunately that ended up being terrible as the Lakers were just, well, the freaking Lakers. So 101 playoff games, 9.1 points per game, 9.5 rebounds per game, 2.5 blocks per game. So, yeah, Dikembe Mutombo is good, and he will wave a finger at you if you insult him. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do